Alright, so now we're just going to do a quick video on how to create your own modules within Node. This is just a simple way to create a module, and after watching this, or after looking at what I'm doing very quickly, you might just think, oh, well, this is just the same thing as requiring files in, but in Node it works a little bit differently, which is why I thought it might be worthwhile to make a short video on this. The key here is to remember what I mentioned earlier within Node, how scope works, in the sense that there's a one-to-one correspondence between files and modules. So every file is in itself its own module. So that being said, let's look here. I've already created this code. And let's say you're just a huge fan of the golden ratio and you want to calculate the nth Fibonacci number. So you write out a JavaScript function like this. We'll assume here that you don't care at all about algorithms and efficiency and want to do it in a recursive manner. So here's the recursive function for the nth Fibonacci number. And this is in one file. So say you want to do this a bunch of times throughout a lot of files that you're doing. So you'll have to separate this into its own file, encapsulate it, I guess. So then come over here to printfib.js. Up at the top, we've got our require function, which we mentioned earlier on how to include modules. So we're taking this function, requiring in the file Fibonacci.js. Notice that for this, it's a little different than if you're requiring in a built-in Node module, and you actually have to designate the file path, which is what the dot and backslash are there, just designating that it's in the current working directory. And that's going to return the file objects, which you're then setting equal to fib. And then you're coming out here. I hard-coded it to print out 10 Fibonacci numbers. So you're logging Fibonacci numbers 1 through 10 within the sequence. So this all looks good. So if we go in, just to give you another look, go in over here and we try to run this file. Look at that. So no, what happened? There was an error. So let's see here. Type error, object. Object has no method Fibonacci. So what happened, and this is why I decided to make this video, is this is probably going to be a very, very common error with people who are just starting out with Node, is that you actually can't do this. And so despite what you would normally think with the way programming works, you'd think that this would just require in this file, you'd have access to the function, you called it correctly in terms of the object dot notation, so you've got fib dot, the function name. However, in Node, like I said, each file is its own module, and so this is just calling in the file, and so it's not actually calling in a module, and then within this module, this function is within its own scope. Every module has its own scope, and so to call this function based off this file is a scope violation, which is why you're getting this, because it's saying that there's no method Fibonacci exists. So within Node, it's a pretty simple solution, but all you need to do is use the exports module. And so what you do by that is you could do exports dot Fibonacci equals Fibonacci and save it. And then what this is doing is it's using exports and dot Fibonacci. This is going to be the name of the function that you're exporting, and then equals Fibonacci, and this is the function name. So now when you come over here, let's see if it works. We don't need to make a change to this file. Look at that, it's automatically okay. If you're familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, you should be able to tell those are correct. Those are first 10 terms. So there's a couple different ways that you can accomplish this. One of them is a pretty explicit way, just by defining the function and then setting that function onto the exports object. So every module will have an exports object, and then when you're requiring in that module, it's also bringing in the exports object. So that's why you have to do this. So exports.Fibonacci equals Fibonacci. So that will achieve the desired functionality of being able to use this function. And then there's just a couple other ways that you can write this. So let's see, you can also come up here and do, this one should have been pretty self-explanatory. You can do the exact same thing and then set it equal to the function. You need a semicolon here if you do that. So you're just taking exports.fibonacci equals that function. So now it's going to set Fibonacci equal to the function. Come over here. This doesn't need to change. Try it out. Voila, same results. It works. So then another way would be a little less straightforward way, and this has a little bit more to do with object-oriented approach towards it, is you can use the module object and do, let's see, I might need to refresh on this one. I copied this over, so we can just take this actually. So now what you're doing is you're taking module.exports, which is just one scope level above, so module.exports, and then you're setting that equal to this object. So you're actually defining a whole object here, which is why you've got the Fibonacci semicolon, then the function. So this is the function as part of the whole module exports object. And so the advantage to doing this would be if you've got a ton of functions that you want to export, you can just do module.exports once and then include them all within that object and list them all right there. And then you don't have to go through each function and write out exports.function name equals the function. So let's test this out. Once again, you need the semicolon here. So coming back over here, try it out. That worked as well. So all of them worked. Now you know how to correctly modularize your programming so that you can create your own modules easily within a project and use repeated functionality.